Alright, who am I? My name is Paul Craig. I'm a Principal Security Consultant at securityassessment.com in Auckland, New Zealand. For those of you who are curious to know, it took me over 30 hours flying and traveling to get here today to bring you this presentation. Thank you. I think that's beer-worthy. I also run the securityassessment.com penetration testing team, and I'm the self-proclaimed king of kiosk hacking. Okay. Today I want to talk a bit about my love affair with internet kiosks. What an internet kiosk is, and most importantly, how we can hack them. I'm going to show you some methods and tools that I've developed on hacking internet kiosks. And I'm going to really do a lot of demos and just show you how you can hack kiosks in about 20-30 seconds. I'm going to introduce a tool called iCat to all of you. Maybe some of you know of it. Yeah, hopefully we're going to have a bit of fun hacking some kiosks. Okay, so my affair with kiosks began 2 years ago. I was actually on my way to another conference. And as it is, when you're in New Zealand, you spend a lot of time flying, and I was flying through Shanghai. And I was sitting in Shanghai, and I had about an 8, maybe 9 hour layover in this airport. And I'm sitting there at my gate, and I'm rubbing my eyes, and I feel like crap. And I see in the distance, there's one of these internet kiosks. For those of you who don't know, that's an internet kiosk, like the thing you browse the internet on at the airport. And I thought to myself, man, these things are actually really popular. There's a big queue of people waiting to use the internet kiosk. And I thought, man, I'm a hacker. I bet I could hack that. Like $10 says, I bet I can. I'm pretty bored at this airport. I bet I could hack it. And then I see these dudes, the Asian dudes that have M14s walking around, the Asian police that have M14s. And I pretty much decided right then on the spot that they would shoot me if they saw me pop shell on their kiosk, or arrest me or something like that. So I decided that maybe hacking kiosks ad hoc at the airport wasn't the way to go, and instead I should go back home and start researching kiosk security, because I'd never previously really looked at how secure kiosks are. So I spent about 16 months researching kiosk products. I installed every single kiosk product in the market. There's close to 40, maybe 45 of them. I installed them all and I started testing them. I started trying to hack them, trying to find bugs. And I found common weaknesses in pretty much all of them. I found what we call same bug, different app scenarios, where basically one class of vulnerability would affect a whole lot of different kiosks. In total, I defeated 38 kiosk products across 3 platforms. So this is Windows, OS X, and Linux variants. These are commercial, freeware, and open source kiosks. Pretty much across the board, across the spectrum, all of them were very hackable. Now, kiosk vendors actually take security really, really seriously. This is a screenshot from one of the kiosk vendors' website. This is Provisio. And they say that their kiosk product specifically monitors and protects the operating system against manipulation by computer vandalism and hacking. In other words, they try and stop us from fucking with their kiosks. Now, security is kind of an interesting twist for kiosk products, because security is a functional requirement and it's also a selling point. So the most secure kiosks are actually the most expensive kiosks. And this is something they use to try and sell the product to you. That, hey, you shouldn't buy our competitor's product, buy our product because it's secure. Now, kiosks implement 2 forms of security. The first is called a user interface jail. Basically, when you log on to the kiosk, when you start using it, you notice you're in a graphically jailed environment. It's like cut down, reduce functionality. You can't really do anything. Maybe there's a start bar, but it only has 1 item in it. Maybe there's no start bar at all. It's a full screen application. You can't really click on anything. You don't really feel like you're using a real operating system. Yeah, you're kind of jailed is the term. And the second security method they implement is what's called an activity blacklist. Basically what this is multiple blacklists of stuff you shouldn't be able to do on the kiosk. In other words, if you try and browse to C:/, it should stop you, and it'll pop up a little box and say, hey, you can't browse C:/. They monitor things like processes that you launch. If you try and spawn cmd.exe, they'll terminate it. They monitor all in-focus dialog IDs and captions of dialog IDs. So if they see a window pop up that they don't want you to access, they'll actively close it. Some kiosk vendors even hook APIs. So they'll hook things like create process or alloc console. And if you try and call, say, like you try and run CMD, which of course calls alloc console, it'll turn around and say, no, sorry, you can't call that process, access denied. These are all methods of stopping you from doing stuff. So here's an example. This is site kiosk. You can see in standard Windows, it looks pretty normal. And then I'm going to run up site kiosk. Of course, it asks me to register. I'll go away. And then it gets this full screen desktop thing at the back, which is called the secure desktop. And then I see my start bar is now completely different. It doesn't look like Windows anymore. Basically what it's done is it's themed or skinned the entire of Windows and reduced what I can do. So I can't really do anything. And I find if I try and browse the C:// yeah, it tells me to go away. That's what they call security. Now there are three major problems I found with kiosks. Firstly, blacklists don't work. Anyone in the security industry knows that blacklists are a flawed approach to security. This is because there are about 1,000 ways to do anything on any operating system. So any kiosk that tries to block you from doing one thing inevitably is going to miss the other 999 ways of doing the exact same thing. The other thing I found was that websites you visit from the kiosk terminal are not factored into the security model. This is primarily due to the fact that a lot of kiosks are written on standard browser technology, things like Internet Explorer. Now, Internet Explorer has a browser security policy that isn't really suited to a kiosk environment. Yeah, and the other major thing I found was that the underlying technology, i.e. the browser technology that's powering the kiosk, implements security by user interaction. In other words, the underlying framework will only do something if you agree to it, because it assumes that the user on the keyboard is trusted, and that if you agree to something, then the browser should do it. So an example of that is that window that pops up. Like, do you want to run this thing? The digital signature has been verified. Are you sure you're going to run this? It'll run it if you say yes. This, of course, brings up a real big problem, because on a kiosk, you shouldn't trust what I say. I'm on the keyboard, sure, I'm local to the computer, but I'm not a trusted person. And this is a really fundamental problem I found with kiosks. Now, Microsoft have what they call the immutable laws of security. I really like this. Law number 3. If a bad guy has unrestricted physical access to your computer, it's not your computer anymore. And immutable, of course, adjective, unchangeable or changeless. So this, I think, may explain why I hack so many kiosks. Because kiosks essentially allow you unrestricted physical access to a computer. All you got to do is find a way of making it become yours rather than theirs. Now, a lot of people ask me, Paul, why the hell do you want to hack kiosks? These dumb little things at the train station or the airport. I mean, what do you have to gain from kiosks? Well, the airport and the train station kiosks are only one type of kiosk. A lot of people use kiosks. Actually, most companies in the world use kiosks. There's a list of some of the industries that use kiosks. We can see things like air and space travel. They have a kiosk terminal. Military, communications. The Belgian Army, SID, they have a kiosk. NASA, US Army. Microsoft have a kiosk, an internet kiosk on their campus. If you walk up to this kiosk and you manage to hack it, you have an entry point into their network. You have a machine which is basically plugged into something really, really interesting. As you can see from that list, there's a hell of a lot of people. Lego have a kiosk. It's probably not made of Lego, no. So my research was released in the form of a tool. It's actually a free software as a service application that you visit from the kiosk terminal. It's a website. I call it the Interactive Kiosk Attack Tool. It's available at icat.ha.ckd.net. Basically, the idea of my design was to pop shell on a kiosk as fast as possible. With the minimal amounts of fucking around, you just click something, click, 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 and then shells appear. This I found is actually invaluable during penetration testing. I'm a professional penetration tester, and I've done quite a few kiosk security reviews, and this tool just walks through kiosks. Now, I launched iCat in 2008 at DEF CON 16. I showed the world iCat, I stood up, and I said, wow, my tool's really awesome, check this out. And I actually accidentally made slip that you can hack all of the kiosks in the Riviera, where DEF CON is held, in about 2 seconds using my tool. And it took about 3 or 4 seconds after my talk before the kiosks were first hacked. And then they were hacked repetitively again and again and again and again and again. I checked my logs afterwards, because ICAT, of course, being a website, I can look at the logs and I can see who's visiting it, and I found that there are 23 Las Vegas Strip kiosks hacked. Basically, hackers were going up and down the Strip, just owning wildly, including Las Vegas Airport, completely hacked. I released ICAT version 2 about mid this year, and I found that at DEF CON 17, the traffic grew by 480%. I actually had a colleague of mine who was speaking at DEF CON, and he said he had a little play with ICAT, and he found that all the kiosks still break very, very easily. So yeah, Vegas is still vulnerable. Now, one of the things that I did when I implemented ICAT was I set up this Gmaps overlay that you can see. I basically asked people, hey, if you hack a kiosk using my tool, can you submit it? Can you show me and the rest of the world where you hack kiosks? There's some really interesting trends. Germans like hacking kiosks. Lots and lots of kiosks hacked by Germans. Along with French, quite a few kiosks. Quite a few Asians, quite a few in New Zealand, surprisingly. So how ICAT works? ICAT tries to employ regular client-side technology. Things like ActiveX, Java, ClickOnce, which is a .NET technology, JavaScript, VBScript, etc., etc. Essentially, the concept, or the main idea, is that I make stuff happen on the kiosk. I try and defeat the security by sort of like a restricted environment by making the environment really unrestricted. I make everything pop up and everything appear, so then instantly you can access the real start bar and you can browse the kiosk, pop shell, and you pretty much win. Yeah, and it provides a reliable escape path from this graphically jailed environment. So I noticed some interesting things when I started researching on kiosk security. I found that Java, ActiveX, and ClickOnce, .NET, and WPF actually allow remote websites to execute local processes as long as you agree to a little annoying message box that pops up. So this is by the security by user interaction. Now this actually happens to work really well on kiosks because all of the kiosks seem to trust if you click the button, I'll do what you say. Also, the runtimes and the information or the applications installed on a kiosk can actually be detected using JavaScript. So I wrote some pretty smart little JavaScript that goes through and tells you what's installed on the kiosk, tells you what the kiosk platform is. So you can see, this kiosk I visited, it's a Netstop Pro kiosk, and it's got Windows Media Player, .NET, and MSN Messenger installed. I discovered the full potential of Notepad. Most people don't know what Notepad can really do. I found a lot of kiosks let you access Notepad. You know, that dumb little editor that doesn't really do anything. If you can access Notepad, you can spawn processes using common dialogues. And you can also use Notepad as a web browser. Check this out. So here I have Notepad. If I go File, Open, and then I browse to Windows System 32, and I type star.exe, and then I find CMD, and I right-click it, I'll open it, and it'll run. Okay, most of us know this trick. So if we get Notepad, we can get cmd.exe. But check out this. If I do file open http://, and then this long URL, Notepad's a web browser. Notepad will actually download that content for me locally. If I go File, Save, I can actually use Notepad to upload content somewhere else. This is using WebDAV and the INET HTTP libraries. So one of the first things I started doing was weaponizing all of my tools into UTF-7, i.e. ASCII safe versions. So you can use Notepad to download VBScript, I've seen in this text file, which will recreate cmd.exe and run it. Basically, it's a convoluted way of saying you can use Notepad to spawn cmd.exe from remotely. Some kiosks actually let you download certain files. You might find some kiosks say, like the visitors might want to download a PDF file, or maybe a help file or a HTML file. These are not so malicious files and not like an executable. So I started looking at the files that were permitted and allowed on a kiosk and how I could use those files to then compromise the kiosk itself. First thing I found was Windows Media Playlists, .asx files. Who here knew that Windows Media Playlists or Windows Media can be used as a web browser? No? No? Oh, right. Okay. No one knew that. So as you'll see in this example, I can tell ICAT, hey, give me a whole lot of different file types, and it'll start spawning me different files. It spawns me an ASX file, and it says, hey, do you want to open this web content, web-enabled content? Yes, please, open it. And then it opens Windows Media Player, and now I get ICAT inside Windows Media Player. Now this is really important because the security policy and security environment inside Windows Media Player is very, very different to the kiosk. Its security restrictions are not secured or hardened at all. Basically, we can use Windows Media Player to download files. Just click files and they run. We can download and execute cmd.exe. Very, very easy. I found similar tricks using document files, docx files. You can embed a binary object inside a docx file. So I wrote my own docx that has cmd.exe inside it. So if you can get Word to pop up, you can double-click cmd.exe, which is inside my docx, and then you get a shell. I wrote my own help file. And my help file allows you to browse the file system, spawn processes. It allows you to pretty much take over the kiosk if you can load or download a help file. And all of my tools, I don't know if you saw in that demo before, all my tools support automatic file enumeration. So basically, one click and a whole lot of stuff tries to pop up. I found some very interesting tricks using URI handlers. Do most people know what a URI handler is? Is this a common term? Show of hands, who here knows what a URI handler is? Okay, alright, okay, some people. So, if you click a mail to link, your mail handler will pop up, usually Outlook Express, okay? If you click the hcp:// link, the Windows Help and Support Center will spawn up. This is particularly useful on a kiosk. Remember, a kiosk tries to stop you from doing things by restricting your functionality. So if we can make all these apps spawn, we can use those apps to pop shells. The Help and Support Center in particular, all you do is search Help and Support for using command prompt. And it provides you a little link on how you can open and spawn command prompt. And then you get shell. If you can type in shell:/Windows or shell:/Windows in your URI bar, you can get Internet or Explorer to pop up and browse Windows. If you type in shell:/, and then there's GUID here, you can actually call an object by its GUID reference. So this allows you to spawn the control panel inside Internet Explorer. So if a kiosk doesn't block shell URIs, you got the control panel. I mean, you pretty much win from the control panel. Now, emo kiosking. This is a term I coined when I found that it's much, much easier, rather than hacking the kiosk, to just crash the bugger. If you can crash it, the kiosk freaks out, you get a little box that says, hey, Windows discovered an unhandled exception, and then the whole kiosk closes. And then what are you left with behind? Windows, or Linux, or your real operating system. It's gone. So who here has ever crashed a browser? Who's ever, with like a PDF file or a help file? Right. So it's really, really easy. I found a lot of ways to crash browsers and crash kiosks. I spent quite a bit of time fuzzing the SWF file format, and I found vulnerabilities in the A2VM, mostly null-pointed dereferences, but I found ways of reliably crashing the parent process. As you'll see in some of my demos, it's the fastest way to get to the raw operating system and get everything that you want. And the really shocking thing I found was that most kiosks don't actually monitor unhandled exceptions. So they don't detect that it's crashed, nothing happens, and you're just left with Windows, which is pretty pathetic. Okay, sorry. Right, okay, my video's gone over the top of my text. But I started researching ways that I could spawn shells. I thought to myself, how many different ways can you pop a shell in Windows? Anyone like to take a guess of how many different ways you can pop shell? Pop cmd.exe. Go on, someone shout a number. 30? Less. Okay, it's actually 17. I found 17 different ways to pop cmd.exe. This was pretty cool because most kiosks, with their blacklist mentality, try to block about 10 of those ways. And as you see in this particular kiosk, which is NetStop kiosk, they blocked 15 different ways of popping shell. However, I still got 3 shells that popped up because my tools, tried all 17 different ways. So you can see the kiosks really don't work. You can see the trend here. This blacklist approach just doesn't work. Now, I was doing a job for a company in New Zealand. And it was a kiosk review. And the company specifically told me, Paul, I've heard you can hack kiosks. I heard that you're pretty good at hacking kiosks. You can't hack my kiosk. And the first thing I said was like, oh yeah? Really? And he said, you can't hack it because it doesn't have a keyboard. how do you going to browse to your iCat website and pop shell when you don't have a keyboard? And I kind of thought, oh, that's actually a good point. How do I do that? So I started thinking, and I started playing, and it actually took me a day or two to figure this trick out. But check this out. So let's say you're at a kiosk, and you find a way of getting to Google. You click a link, and you get to Google. How do you go to iCat from Google? So firstly, look on the page. You find an I. You select the I. You drag it into the search box. You release the I. You find a K. You drag it. You select it. You see how it goes. This process, this is easier than it actually was, because doing this with your finger on a touch screen is really, really tricky. But this basically proved to the guy who said, oh, you don't got a keyboard, that, oh, actually it is hackable, because Windows supports basically a virtual keyboard through the mouse, which made that possible. And yeah, I Googled for iCat, third hit down, iCat. Okay, let's hack some kiosks. First kiosk we're going to hack today is called KioWare. It's used in airports and hotels around the world. There was actually a new version of KioWare released last week. And this new version very sneakily fixed all of my exploits, all of my tricks, and all of my bugs. So maybe kiosk vendors are listening, but this is on the slightly older version. Well, the last version. Let's just start up my virtual machine. So just down a question, do you get many kiosks around here in Belgium? I always keep an eye out. No, not many. Yeah, they're really big in Asia. Not so big in Europe. But still, I've seen some at train stations. I saw some in Holland in train stations. Alrighty, let's full screen. Okay. So you can see we've got standard Windows here, logged on as a kiosk user. This is an operating system configured as per KioWare security best practice, so i.e. what they recommend. Go run up KioWare. You can see everything disappears. I'm now secured. Okay. And it sent me to iCat. Okay, first thing iCat's done is it said, hey, you're using Windows, and it sent me to iCat for Windows. I'm going to look at what are some of the installed applications on this kiosk. Okay, it's told me I'm running KioWare Basic. I've got the .NET framework installed, and I've got Windows Media Player 11 installed. This is pretty handy because this tells me what my attack vectors are. I know that I can start exploiting this kiosk through .NET. So let's have a look down here. Let's see if I can get a common dialog to pop up. If I can get a common dialog, I might be able to spawn cmd.exe. I see when I click the file open browse dialog, nothing happens. This is part of the kiosk. It's blocking me from accessing a common dialog. That's pretty sneaky. What about spawning a URI handler? So I'm going to click this link, and this is going to try and spawn all of the different URI handlers that are available to Windows, and we'll just see what happens, like HCP and LDAP. Alright, so that pops up, that pops up. Oh look, I got the real start bar back. That pops up. So now, well, yeah, now I win. Now I got shell. That was easy. I can do this using command prompt. Oh, Jesus. Ready. I have no idea how to use the command prompt. Please show me using command prompt. Now this is a particularly useful trick because I'm only using the left mouse button here. Now this is useful because most kiosks don't actually have a right mouse button. This is their security restriction. They say, oh, like, I don't want you to right click a file and pop shell, so I'm only going to give you a left mouse button. But with the left mouse button I can also pop shell. So that's too easy. Okay, so what else can I do with this? It told me that I had .NET installed. Let's try some of my .NET tools. Let's try what I call my application executor. I'll try and run this. Can I spawn .NET? Verifying application requirements. JavaScript error. Hey. All right. Gives shells. Shells. I win. More shells. Through .NET, of course, because none of them are actually stopping or blocking .NET. They rely on the default Internet Explorer security policy, which says if you accept the little box that pops up regarding launching this .NET application, it's safe to launch it. What about... Oh my god. What about some emo kiosking? Can we crash this kiosk? So let's try this. I read this tool called the Automatic Flash Fuzzer, which basically exploits a whole bunch of my Flash exploits. Bang, bang, bang. There you go, and we're back to Windows. It then respawns, however, but you can see the nice little race condition, where it took about 3 or 4 seconds for it to detect that it had crashed, and then respawned. And in that time, I click Start, and now I've got cmd.exe again. So that was like 4 different ways in, what, a minute, 2 minutes? Game over. Kiosk is not secure. So let's pause this one, and let's move on. Next kiosk, Site Kiosk version 7. This is by a company called Provisio. Now this company takes security really seriously. Reception.sitekiosk.net was the most prolific user of ICAT version 1. That dude spent hours and hours and hours testing their software against my tool. And they fixed all the bugs. And then I spent a good 3 weeks finding more bugs so I could re-exploit version 7. Now, what I found they did, this is the really smart thing, was that they implemented native Windows ACLs to try and stop me. They said, well, look, a blacklist approach and a software approach really doesn't work here. We need to go lower and just stop this guy at the operating system. So they implemented the equivalent of a UMask in Linux, or in the Unix world. Who here doesn't know what a UMask is? Okay, I'll explain it anyway. So UMask basically says, any file created by this user can't do something. So they said any file created by the kiosk user cannot be executed. So you can download files, you can rummage through the file system, but you'll never be able to execute a process. They then went through all of the Windows executables and files and basically marked them as non-executable for the kiosk user. So I can't use cmd.exe, and if I download it, I can't run my own version. Then they were really sneaky and set in their default config file that the ICAT URL was hidden and blocked. This is icat.ha.ckd.net. So, let's hack that. That's going to take a couple minutes. Come on. So who here has actually ever hacked a kiosk? I always ask this. I meet kiosk hackers. Oh, yeah, go listen down the front row. Right. It's good fun, right? ICAT rocks. What? Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Are you using version 2 or version 1 or? All right, still going. So I've got submitted maybe 20, maybe 25. I'm looking through my logs. I'm finding maybe 15, 20 kiosks a day, which is quite a few kiosks. I didn't even know there were that many kiosks out there. Alrighty, come on. Okay, Site Kiosk. Interestingly enough, the Site Kiosk user password is always Provisio. It's always a bad start. Alrighty. Okay, so we're going to run up Site Kiosk. Register. So I have to hack this within 2 minutes, or the registration dialog is going to pop up. I'm sure I can do it. This kiosk is particularly quite heavy because they have so many security restrictions. They really sort of went overboard in trying to stop. Come on. Alright. Okay, so here we are. Firstly, I'm an evil hacker. ICANN, HACKD.net. This URL has been prohibited. So I was like, bugger, how am I going to hack version 7? So the first thing I did was I went out and I registered icat2.ha.ckd.net. And what do you know? It works. You think they would learn the blacklists? Okay, so look again, some of the installed applications. What do we have available to hack this kiosk? So we've got site kiosk, we've got .NET. Okay, I'm going to go straight for .NET. I'm going to try and see if I can use .NET since it was so wildly successful in the other one. Okay, I'm going to try this exact same approach. Spawning application executor. Verifying application environments. Application cannot be started. Please contact the application vendor. So I got this error box pops up, and basically none of these tricks in the website actually work. All of them pop up different errors. But I found this one. If you click details, it shows you the details using Notepad. I was like, cool, I got Notepad. Hey, what can I do with Notepad? But what can I do with Notepad? So remember, I can't run cmd.exe because I don't have any access or any permissions to run cmd.exe. I mean, I can do like this. I can try and find an executable. I don't actually have, they've disabled the right mouse altogether in this. So the only way I can get things to spawn is by dragging one binary onto the second binary to spawn it. Actually, sorry, the other way. Right. So it won't actually let me spawn any of these processes. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to try my fancy, I'll download UTF-7 encoded shellcode, which is in VBScript that'll run and give me some magical form of shell. So I'll download Windows files cmd.vbs and ANSI. Open. It downloads this. I turned every executable into about 5 meg of VBScript. So this is the contents of cmd.exe. And then I thought, okay, I can save this. I'll save this as 1.vbs. And then what I'll do is save it again as 2.vbs. Yeah, and then I go File, Open, Star. And then I'll drag one onto the second so I can spawn the first. Okay. And then it's going to recreate cmd.exe in the current directory, and then it'll spawn it, and I'll get shell, and I win, right? So waiting, there's cmd.exe, permission denied. So Windows has said, hey, you want to run a file that you created, bugger off, you're not going to be able to do this. Native permissions, you don't have access. And I started thinking for a while, it's actually took me about quite a while sitting there thinking, like, oh, how do I beat this? How do I get around this? And then I realized that I actually already won. Even though I can't spawn a process, I can run VBScript. So I started racking my brain, what can I do in VBScript that could affect or attack the kiosk and give me access to the underlying operating system? So I came up with this. I call it the Emo Kiosker. It's basically WMI. I'm using a WMI call, which is part of the Windows management instrumentation, to try and terminate a process. And I found a very, very interesting condition when I try and terminate processes on a kiosk. So this time I'll save this as 3.vbs, and again as 4.vbs. I go File, Open, Star, I grab 3, I run it down to 4, executes my VBScript. It says, hey, suspected kiosk process found, site kiosk.exe. Do you want to terminate this? Yes. Tries to terminate the process, and the trick was, come on, please do it. There we go. I'm back to Windows. So what I found was basically if I kill the kiosk process, it tries to respawn the kiosk process because it was killed, and if I kill it while it's in the process of respawning it, I create an unhandled exception in the parent process, which is actually running a system, which is game over. The whole thing crashes, and I'm back to Windows. And of course, this is the only way you can do it because the parent process runs a system, and an underprivileged user can't kill the process, which, you know, greater privileges than itself. So this is the only trick I found that lets me attack site kiosk. The real pain in the ass here is, though, is that even though I'm back to Windows now, I can't actually do anything because I don't have cmd.exe. I don't have access to really browse the file system. You can just leave the kiosk in a broken state. But it's the best I could do, so... Okay, let's pause this one. I'm going to start up the next one. Future tense. Okay. Okay, so after I released iCat version 1, there was an article in Computer World in New Zealand. Kiwi hacker develops kiosk attack tool. I thought, hey, it's pretty cool. My mum rang me up and said, hey, Paul, you're in the newspaper. And I thought, wow, that's pretty awesome. The week following, there was a kiosk vendor that replied to the newspaper article. And he said, Linux beats Windows for kiosk security. I thought, oh yeah, Mac Jones of Whangarei-based NetStop says public-facing kiosks running Windows-based software are harder to harden. He went on to say, but now most 15-year-olds can pull up information on the internet and hack a Windows computer. Okay, all right. He also said something on the akin that only non-professional people run Windows and that Windows isn't really considered a real or secure environment. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, you want to tell me that Linux can't be hacked. So I instantly changed my direction. I stopped hacking Windows. I said, I'm going to hack Linux. I actually started by hacking Mac Jones's kiosks that he himself does. So I thought to myself, Linux has to be hackable. Linux kiosks are based on Mozilla and Firefox. Okay, Linux browsers actually have less functionality than Windows. That's a bit of a problem for kiosks. We don't have things like .NET to play with. We don't have like VBScript. I thought, it took me over a week to break Kiosk 7. Linux should take me months. I tried to hack 8 different Linux kiosks. I hacked all 8 of them. I found multiple root privilege escalation vulnerabilities. I found default unhardened installations. Basically, it was trivial to pop shell and privesc to root. I was expecting more. I thought Linux guys, or Unix guys in general, were actually hardcore. I thought us Windows guys were supposed to be really lame. Yeah, I was quite let down. So the objective is to spawn USR bin xterm. I want a shell to pop up. I want an X Windows X11 shell. The first thing I started thinking about was how can I use Firefox to spawn a shell or spawn a process. Now, if you can access about:config in Firefox, which is the configuration page, this allows you to reconfigure Firefox. So I thought, well, why can't I just configure like an external view source editor to be USR bin xterm? So when I say view source, it'll spawn xterm. Sure enough, that works. You can define an external handler for like a PDF file. Say, look, Firefox, every time I download a PDF file, open it with xterm, and you get shells. You can say, every time I print with xterm, you get shells. Problem was, only one kiosk allowed me direct access to about:config. It's because all the kiosks have a little blacklist of the URLs you're not supposed to access, and about:config is in them. And then I started having a think, and I realized that about:config is actually an alias to its correct URL, which is chrome:// and sure enough, I found if I typed that into a Linux kiosk, their blacklist didn't preempt this, and I get access to about:config, which allows me to then reconfigure it and pop shells quite easy. You can also access about:cache. I found some conditions where the kiosk will block you accessing the config, but not the cache. From the cache, you can look at all the previous web requests made through the kiosk, including detailed post information, such as your username and your password that you posted to log on to your bank, or your mail, or something like that. There are 3 different about:cache URLs, which you can use. I then started playing around with my own Firefox extension. I thought, man, I wonder if some of these kiosks would let me install an extension. And sure enough, they implement security by user interaction. You get this little pop-up that pops up and says, hey, I prevented this site from trying to install an extension. If you really want this to happen, click here. So, okay, click, it installs. You install my extension, and then you right-click, and you find you get a couple of extra items in your right-click menu. One of these is spawn a binary, spawn an xterm. You also spawn reverse and forward shells. Okay, let's hack some Linux kiosks. Today we're going to be hacking WebConverger and Morphix. These are both the latest versions available. Live CD distributions, they're built on Linux. Both of them, ironically enough, tout their security features. So let's break them. Alrighty, more fix first. Let's go to iCat. So it detects, hey, you're in a non-Windows kiosk. Okay. So let's check out some of the Chrome resources. So what version of Firefox am I using? You're using Firefox 1.5. Okay, so if I come here, can I access that URL, which is the about:config from the Chrome configuration? Hey, I can. Well, that's pretty damn easy. And then I will hijack the printer. So I find the print command, which is that. My new print command is, of course, usr bin extern. My usr bin extern. Okay. And I'm going to go back to iCat. Go to my common dialogues. I need to print, and it doesn't have a print dialog or print icon in the menu. You see they've disabled it. So I have a handy little thing here that lets me print. Print. You sure you want to print this? Yes, print. Printing. Hey, shell. Now the Wunderbar Emporium exploit that came out recently works really, really nicely on all of these kiosks. From this point, getting root is absolutely trivial. You can also see that we have wget on the kiosk. Wow, that's really handy. How about netcat? Yeah, we got netcat too. So we can spawn a reverse shell back to another box. 2 seconds. I mean, why these aren't like hardened installations? Well, why do you need a copy of wget and netcat inside your kiosk? I have no idea. But yeah, game over. Let's hack another one. Let's hack Web Converger. This one's a little harder. Oh, come on. I guess that's what I get for trying to run like 6 kiosks on my laptop. Come on, come on. Alrighty. What? Okay, full screen that. Alrighty. Okay. Here we are. We got iCat for Linux. Woo. Just out of interest, I get a hell of a lot of flack about this logo. I gave this presentation in Malaysia, and people there were really, really conservative, right? All the Muslim people with their headdresses, and all the women were like this when they saw the picture. The reason I have a logo like this is actually to stop people from hacking kiosks with it. Because people say, like, oh, when I'm sitting at the train station or the airport, I'm hacking the kiosk. This is actually the last thing that I want on the screen, because everyone looks at it and thinks you're surfing porn. That's my reasoning anyway. Okay, so let's try the exact same trick. We'll go, hey, detect my Firefox version. Hey, using Firefox 3 this time. Okay, that's cool. Let's try accessing about:config. Firstly, let's type about:config. Access to this protocol is being disabled. Okay, that's obviously in the blacklist. How about accessing the Chrome URL? Nothing happens. It's also disabled. They don't want you to access that. Okay, well, that's fine. I've got a long list of Chrome URIs here. How about accessing tools options? Okay. Oh, there we go. We can get tools options, access that directly through the Chrome URI. That's kind of handy. What can we do with this? So, why don't we manage some of the add-ons that we have on this kiosk? Oh, look, we got this Web Converger kiosk extension. Now, I had to disable that shit. Oh, fuck that. All right, we'll restart iceweasel. And the kiosk comes back. And now you see we've got a whole lot more menus. Okay. Now we've got rid of the kiosk extension. It's time to add my extension. So I'm going to install the iCat Firefox extension. Of course, it says, oh, I've prevented. Are you sure? Yes, I do. Oh, are you sure? The author's not verified. This could be really naughty. Yes. Okay, you're gonna have to restart again. Okay, sure, restart. One new add-on has been installed. This is now persistent until the kiosk is next rebooted or like reset off its live CD. I right click, and now I can spawn a listen shell, a reverse shell, spawn a binary, or just spawn xterm. Give me xterm, please. And I got xterm. So this is actually using JavaScript, using init or process.init to just spawn a local process. This is standard JavaScript functionality, but the kiosk, same thing, fails. And this one, I have wget also. I don't have... I don't have netcat, but I have wget, so I guess that's pretty much the same thing, because I can download netcat. Alright, so game over. I pretty much figured Linux kiosks are dead. You can see from the dead penguin. Okay, hang on, is any of this Ode? Accessing Chrome, that's not Ode. You know, .NET was actually designed to spawn applications. This is part of, you know, its design. It's a feature, not a bug. Java is also capable of spawning processes. Everything is functioning as it was designed and expected. Apart from the race condition I found inside kiosk, that pretty much is Ode. Yeah, these are features, not bugs. Remember Microsoft's immutable law of security, law number 3, that if I have access to your computer, you pretty much lose. Now, photo kiosks. I was walking down the street a little while ago, and I walked into a place called The Warehouse in New Zealand. It's this big store. It's kind of like Walmart in New Zealand. And they got these photo kiosks everywhere. And I walked past and I thought, holy crap, I never thought of this previously. I never thought of hacking a photo kiosk. I wonder if I could do that. Now, the first thing I realized is that these things don't have an internet connection. So using iCat, it's not going to work. However, they do accept memory cards, CD-ROMs, and USB sticks. Now, I started doing a bit of research on photo kiosks. I started Googling, and I found this group called the Anti-Walmart Group. It's this bunch of like teenagers in America who obviously work at Walmart, hate their jobs, and they write a whole lot of information on how Walmart can be hacked. One of them said specifically that he broke into one of the photo kiosks and he found thumbnail copies of every photo that had been processed at the kiosk. And I went, ooh, because the first thing that ran through my mind is what type of photo are you going to get processed automatically by a machine versus a person? Tell me, right? It's the dodgy photo of you and your missus, or you and your... Right. So if we can access the photos that are on this kiosk, it could be really fun and amusing for us. So I developed what I call iCat Photo. Basically, it's just like iCat, but it's for Windows photo kiosks. You extract it to a USB stick or a memory card. You can keep it on your keyring, keep it on you the whole time. And whenever you see a photo kiosk, just jam it in the machine and see what happens. It uses autorun.inf and contains all the tools. This is particularly handy because I found many of these kiosks let you have common dialogues where we can run processes. So if you can have all the tools that you need on a USB stick to hack the kiosk, that's obviously pretty handy. It allows for pretty fast exploitation. It's also completely touchscreen friendly. In other words, these buttons are really big, and it's hard to miss them. And as you can see, the first button is touchscreen keyboard. So it'll actually spawn a virtual touchscreen keyboard for you, the on-screen keyboard, and that will then give you access to use cmd.exe and do whatever you want. And ironically enough, I tried this out at the warehouse in New Zealand, and it worked a treat. It worked very nicely, and I popped shell. However, I wasn't brave enough to try and find the photos, because I don't like going to jail. Now, are there any questions? That's the end of my talk.
Just a small question. Is an automatic teller machine some kind of kiosk?
Yes, an automatic teller machine is some type of kiosk. However, the input vectors are severely limited. So an ATM, you only have your standard keypad, which is usually a PS2 keypad. Yeah, so this type of attack would work, but you'd have to find a way of getting access to it. Maybe if it had USB or something on it. On a similar note, I've actually noticed that planes these days have USB. A lot of things have USB.
There's a smart card reader.
Smart card reader? We don't have those in New Zealand, but that's true, yes.
And in Belgium we have touch screens as well.
Right. Okay, well, I mean, yeah, if you could find something in the smart card, then yeah, I mean,
Just a small comment. Probably, if you would do some physical unwinding, you would probably find a USB keyboard inside of it. So that could be an option.
What, you mean on the ATM?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, but then you got to get a crowbar and get it open. Have you ever tried crowbarring an ATM? Right. I think, pretty sure they arrest you for that.
Just wanted to ask what the license is on your code and the web application and all the.
Okay, all right, that's a very good question. So I found a lot of people were trying to wget all of ICAT because they wanted their own copy. So I just zipped up the whole thing and I call it ICAT Portable. It's completely free, it's completely open source. All of my tools, most of them are Win32 ASM, but I release full source code and the tools. So you can just download all of it and do what you want with it.
Thanks.
All open.
Do you have a strategy if you are confronted to a kiosk with a whitelist approach and without any INO port except a keyboard?
Sorry, could you repeat the question for me?
So here you demonstrate that you are capable to hack any kiosk if you have access mainly to either one USB
Yes.
input-output port or either to your website or any website.
You mean the photo kiosks or?
No, the photo kiosk or any other kiosk. You
Well,
need to go to your website.
Okay, it's input. If
Yeah.
you have input to a device, you can use that input to invoke other functionality, and you can use that functionality to get to the operating system.
But
Was
if
that
you're
your
gonna-
question, or was your question how to prevent this?
Yeah, but example, you have one shop which provide one kiosk,
Okay.
and the only URL which is visible is the eShop of this shop. So you don't have access to your website in this case.
Oh, okay, all right.
What is
all
your
right.
strategy in
Yep,
this
yep,
case?
Yep. So I've been in this situation. People have done that. So then you find a cross-site scripting vulnerability in that site, and you exploit that to get a link back to Google, and you search from there. Or maybe like the site uses Google to search their own search engine. From Google you find it. Or an XSS. Or you find a way of getting a stored injection vulnerability remotely, inject into it, and then access that from the kiosk. There's always a way.
Have you tried your tool against thin client computers and hardened Windows hardened Windows systems?
Hardened Windows systems. Okay, can you define?
Lockdown desktops, where a lot of companies might try and put that into.
Okay, you mean like Citrix or?
Citrix, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I didn't actually plan on this, but ICAT completely destroys Citrix. It just opens it up like a tin can. Hardened isn't, and secured and lockdown isn't, because no one really understands the complexities of Windows internals. And if you spend enough time learning how to use Windows and bypass these hardenings, you win. Yes, Citrix completely falls over. Any remote desktop, thin desktop environments, people are using ICAT to hack some very creative things, same manner. Game consoles. PS3. So I actually tried some of my Flash exploits against PS3, but apart from that, no. It's not really my aim. I was mostly just going for the kiosks. I'm kind of finished with kiosks now. I think I've done all of them. But thank you.